A goat never forgets a face. Not the face of the farmer who feeds it, not the face of the dog that growls at the fence, and not the face of the herd member who pushed it away from the feed bowl 6 months ago. Goats remember insults, and when the moment comes, they remember exactly who to avoid and who to push back. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll understand something most goat owners never figure out. Your goat isn't just remembering you, it's keeping score. Here's the strange part. Farmers have noticed it for generations. A goat gets headbutted by another goat during a fight over food. Weeks pass. Nothing happens. Then, out of nowhere, in a totally unrelated moment, that same goat shoves the one who headbutted it hard for no obvious reason. No food was involved, no threat, no competition. It just happened. Was that random, or was that goat remembering something from weeks ago and finally acting on it? To answer that, we need to understand how a goat's brain actually stores memory and what it does with the memories it keeps. Let's start with the basic question. Do goats even have long-term memory? Yes, and it's better than most people assume. Researchers tested this by showing goats a series of images tied to a reward. The goats had to learn which image meant food and which meant nothing. Then, weeks later, without any practice in between, the goats were tested again. The research showed that goats have long-term memory, allowing them to tell apart visual images for several weeks after only seeing them once. That's not just memory. That's memory that survives a long gap with zero reinforcement. But here's where it gets more interesting. Visual memory is one thing, sound is another. Goats are also able to remember the calls of other goats for several months after hearing them. Months, not days, not weeks. So, a goat can hear another goat's voice once and recognize that exact voice again almost half a year later. Now ask yourself, if a goat's brain is built to hold onto a voice for months, what does it do with a memory that's far more important than a voice? A memory of being heard? That's where this gets uncomfortable. Goats don't live as individuals. They live inside something scientists call a fission-fusion society. That means the herd isn't one fixed, frozen group. Goats form flexible social groups and fluid hierarchies that shift and reorganize. Members split off, regroup, mix with other goats, and come back together sometimes daily. In a group like that, you'd expect goats to forget who's who. Too much movement, too many faces. But the opposite is true. Goats track relationships across that chaos. They know who outranks them. They know who's safe to stand near. And they know who has wronged them, even if that goat disappeared from the group for weeks and came back. This is where the headbutt story stops looking random. If a goat can remember a voice for months and remember a face for weeks without reinforcement, then a forceful shove, a moment of pain, of social humiliation in front of the herd is exactly the kind of event a goat's memory system is built to hold on to. But memory alone doesn't explain the delay. Why wait? Why not retaliate immediately? The answer isn't really about memory anymore. It's about emotion. Goats don't just remember events. They tag those events with feeling. Goats have at least 8 identifiable emotional vocalizations. And recent research using neural networks has been able to classify these calls with over 95% accuracy, sorting them into specific emotional categories: anticipation of feeding, the bond between a mother and her kid, distress during separation, isolation from the group, and even the presence of an unfamiliar visitor. In other words, a goat's vocal system isn't random noise, it's an emotional fingerprint. Every call carries information about how that goat feels in that exact moment. Now, combine that with what we already know about memory. A goat that gets shoved away from food doesn't just log "this happened." It logs how it felt when it happened: frustration, fear, the sting of losing status in front of the herd. That emotional tag is what makes the memory durable. It's also what makes it resurface. This is the same pattern researchers have found in other highly social animals. Animal behavior research has shown that several species can recognize individuals, remember past encounters, and adjust their responses accordingly, using memory and recognition to connect a past event to a present opportunity. Goats appear to do the same thing, not constant aggression, not instant revenge. A quiet tracking system that waits for the right moment when the original aggressor is alone, distracted, or lower in the pecking order than they were before. And that's the moment the random headbutt happens. It was never random. But here's the part that changes everything we just said. If goats only remembered the bad, this would just be a story about animal grudges. But that's not what the research shows. The same memory system that holds onto a shove at the feed bowl also holds onto trust. A goat that has been treated gently by a specific herdmate or a specific human remembers that too for just as long. Which means the grudge isn't really about revenge at all. It's about risk assessment. A goat that was hurt isn't plotting payback the way we imagine a grudge working, it's updating a mental list. This individual is dangerous to be near. And the shove we see weeks later isn't an act of revenge, it's the goat protecting its position the moment it senses an opening, because the threat is still on the list. That's not emotion for emotion's sake. That's a survival strategy, built entirely out of memory and feeling, running quietly in the background of every goat in the herd. So when you ask, do goats hold grudges? The honest answer is, not the way we do. They don't replay the moment in their head out of spite. They just never stopped keeping track.